I do look at it as a bit like the dentist, right? It's good that it's there, but I don't necessarily want to go there.
Welcome to the Voice of Visma podcast, where the heartbeat of our community comes to life. Join us as we chat with Visma leaders and colleagues, sharing their stories, industry insights, and valuable career lessons.
Welcome to the Voice of Visma. I will be the host today. My name is Petteri Rantamäki and I work as the accounting office specialist at Visma Group. And my work is all about helping Visma companies build sustainable success with accounting offices. And today we have a very interesting theme, actually a combination of a couple of themes. We'll talk about artificial intelligence, we will speak about accounting offices and those professional service firms in general. And just to set the scene for those who are maybe not so familiar with accounting offices, because we don't want to assume that from every listener online, these firms are the backbone of national economies. They provide services in accounting, payroll, financial statements, taxes, budgeting, consultation, and so much more. In Europe, there's about 800,000 of accounting and auditing related businesses, and they employ about 2 million people as well. And it's this industry is very important when it comes to artificial intelligence and how this technology is entering the game. And today I have a great guest with me joining to speak about artificial intelligence. So it's not only going to be me going into this theme. With me I have Joris Joppe, who is the managing director of one of our Dutch companies, Visionplanner. So would you like to start off with some introductions? Who is Joris? And then we can go deeper into the theme itself.
Sure. Thanks for the invitation. I am Joris. I'm an accountant, actually. I've been there for a very long time. I'm also a father and husband and have a few kids. But I guess most relevant is that I'm managing director of Visionplanner. We provide our software to about 4,000 accounting offices, and they use it to help SMEs, so small companies, I would say up to 50 employees, with financial reporting. And in aggregate, I think we serve about 250,000 SMEs. So what we do matters, if only because accountants make their money with our software. So that's a bit about my background. I'm 51 years old and kind of rolled into the accounting profession and never got out. So, but very happy at where I am now. It's an exciting time.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I bet you have also seen plenty of change during the time that you've been in the industry itself. And now, of course, AI has been a big late movement or phenomena in the industry itself. So how do you feel about when it entered the industry itself? How has it been with artificial intelligence and accounting or professional services in general?
I think what we need to realize is that it's a domain where regulation is quite important. So that kind of dictates how people do their work, what they do. So technologies like AI can definitely benefit, but it needs some time to find its place in the ecosystem. But I think right now, because it's so accessible for consumers, the question is posed, right? What can I do? How can this make my work more efficient or more fun? Or and we get that question a lot. I think, to be quite honest, we have to be very careful about what technology fits where, because, well, from a most obvious perspective, the AI we're talking about since, say, 2 years ago is all about large language models, and accountants tend to work with numbers a lot, and that's a bit of a mismatch. It's getting better, but we do have to think about what is the right tool for the right job.
You're on a positive track. You believe it's going to find its place eventually.
Yeah.
Not quite yet, but...
No, certainly. And also, I think we should not forget that you say that accountants play a vital role in the economy. And I think that's true. That's not an exaggeration. Tax returns have to be good, reliable, on time. Payroll has to be made. But there's a lot around the numbers where accountants play a pivotal role as well. You know, getting funding, talking to shareholders. And that's not all about numbers. It's a lot about how do I explain these numbers. And the current generation of AI can play a very important role.
Yeah. And I think it's always going to be like oftentimes in our industry, it's a balance between what do we do for the government in the accounting industry itself and what do we do for the value of the company. So what kind of benefit are we trying to give them? So where does AI sit better actually in that division?
Yeah, I think that's actually a good distinction. I mean, what we do for the government is highly standardized. It's highly regulated, machine-to-machine communication. It's been thought out. So there we can tweak and make it more efficient. But what you do for the entrepreneur and the stakeholders around the entrepreneur, that's where really AI can play a more important role, if you ask me.
Yeah. Exactly.
And slowly we see the industry adopting that.
And are you at Visionplanner, you're working something in this area?
Yeah. We've integrated some AI features in our product already. Again, mostly on how do you explain these numbers? Because we do have to realize that not all entrepreneurs, if you run like a little factory or a garage, you may not want to be looking at your numbers at all. So maybe it's more interesting to read about it or listen to it in the form of a voicemail or a podcast even. And AI can just help us translate those numbers seamlessly into any other format that you want. So that it helps the guy running the garage understanding, can I hire more people? Do I need to find more customers? Can I invest? Basic questions like that.
I've also heard a couple times that companies approach AI as like, maybe it could help junior people provide senior level advice, which I think is an interesting line that I have heard. Do you think that's an area where it can come to help, for example, a junior accountant or junior in the industry to maybe boost themselves faster? Or
I haven't heard that, but I think it can make you can pretend to be more senior. I think we need to be careful. I think what we see, if you look at the parallel at law firms, for instance, I think what's happening there is that the juniors are basically phased out because we don't need anyone to read long contracts or draft contracts, and and then the senior people take that to the client. And I think that is key. And that's also where the accounting industry can win a lot by spending more time with the entrepreneurs. So it will affect junior staff in the industry, no doubt. But every form of automation has done that in the past.
All right.
So,
how is of course interested, and I bet many people also watching are interested, how is the process of trying to find the opportunities with AI in a company like Visionplanner? Like, how did you approach that? Like, where could we use it? Where would it be valuable and also possible to build something? You get a few words on that.
Yeah. It's interesting. We talk to our customers, obviously. So we have co-creation sessions where we invite them in and talk through the options that we see, discuss what they think is useful. The challenge is always that we need to make a generic, affordable solution. So if they go like, well, I have 50 pharmacies as a customer and there's a good use case for pharmacies, that's fine. But, you're the only one with 50 pharmacies. That's not how we make our living. So there's a challenge there in making it generic. But we also talk to firms who've done their own experiments. And they've been just opening ChatGPT and see how far we get with customer questions. And I think that's a lot of it, and firms will find that out, accounting firms. How you structure your data, how you organize your data is going to be key in how you can leverage AI. Because, like we as software firms, every question from a customer is registered in our support systems. So we have thousands of questions and answers, and we can train our own models on that.
Right. And
I bet you every accounting firm has thousands of questions, but they're everywhere. They're in mailboxes, in voicemails, so how do you train your AI on that? And of course, someone will say that will come. But if you had them more structured, you can leverage that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's definitely a need to think from the start. How do you record transactions? and so that you can use AI in an effective way.
And client communications as well. I think it was in an event in London where they were talking about an unforgotten area, for example, client communications. Like maybe we don't think about it as much as we should. How do we email? How fast do we respond? And what kind of language do we use? And what do we involve in everything? Maybe there's a lot of opportunities there as well in that domain.
Yeah, and again, the parallel with Visma companies, where we sometimes see that AI is appreciated more than a person in the software, in the support domain. So why would that be any different for an entrepreneur? I mean, as much as I love the accounting industry, I do look at it as a bit like the dentist, right? It's good that it's there, but I don't necessarily want to go there.
Right.
And I think entrepreneurs also have that perspective a little bit.
Yeah, maybe your accountant should have given you also a lollipop when you were heading out and give you a good experience with that.
Yeah.
What about of course, a lot of people are thinking, is this going to take my job? And very often in the history of this industry, we've heard that a new technology comes in. Now again, we don't need accountants. This technology comes in. Now you don't need this because the technology does everything. Where are we now when it comes to the artificial intelligence movement? Is that a legitimate reason to worry for someone maybe thinking about coming to the industry? Or what about my next 20 years in this industry itself?
I think it's a very legitimate question to think about if you enter the industry, but more in terms of what type of employer am I looking for? Am I looking for an employer who is embracing this and looking at all the opportunities? Because they will be the winners. And if you end up at an employer where you're in the basement, keying in invoices and stuff like that, which still happens, then you're in the wrong place. When it comes to taking over the job, I mean, we've had IT developments that have 10x efficiency so many times. When I started in, this is long ago, 1991 or so.
Time flies.
Yeah, well, not exactly, but this was sort of after spreadsheet had been introduced.
Yeah,
and that was, it also made it 100 times more efficient to do certain jobs.
Yeah,
and it didn't kill us. We got the whole OCR technology. By the way, at that time we thought OCR was artificial intelligence as well. So we keep changing the definition as well. So I'm not too worried. Plus, with demographic developments in most countries or Western European countries, there's not enough people.
Right.
So it would be very useful to have a bit of extra hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in most countries we hear that we have a lack of workforce. So maybe artificial intelligence could help in that whole picture itself.
I think we need to look more at regulation and also in terms of regular automation and what there's a lot to win there as well. But definitely AI can play a role too.
Do you have or have you come up with some kind of a dialogue about the technology to the local industry? Because you're in the Netherlands, right? And of course, the industry listens to someone. Like hopefully they study and listen to podcasts and whatnot, and look at how companies in this industry speak about AI. So how do you try to approach the topic, and do you communicate to the industry somehow about it?
We tend to be part of the discussion through our own newsletters, but also industry events, and try to reach software users as much as possible. And also try and validate ideas, like the basic fact of, okay, I have a meeting, fine. Can we record that meeting? Can we automatically summarize that meeting, take the actions point out, stuff that maybe you use on a daily basis, but is not customary in the accounting space. And even those things, they're not necessarily our software, right? They may use Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, but it saves them half an hour on a meeting of an hour. So those kind of things, that kind of discussion we're having as well. How do you use everyday tools? Spend €10 a month on ChatGPT,
absolutely,
but use it to write your long form emails.
And I think it's also a lot of people, of course, have our own responsibility for how we react to change and how we react to new opportunities around us.
Yeah, and I think I think that's actually a good point. What we do see a lot in the accounting industry is that it's very much focused on productivity and can I charge these hours to the client. So some firms also tend to take away the little toys from their staff or their teams and go like, no. If it's not exactly right, I don't want you to use it because it'll just take up time. But I think that also takes away the incentive to play around, innovate, and see what it can bring you. And I hope that firms get a bit of a different mindset and go like, no, let's try and use something else now instead of doing our traditional ways of working.
Do you think it's going to have some kind of fundamental impact maybe on the business model itself? Because of course the industry has been very hourly rate driven. We've tracked the hours and how much we spend on each client. And then of course technology, well, we used to speak about automation for quite some time.
Yeah.
Maybe now we're moving to new themes, which again, at the bottom of it, it's efficiency. So time and hours and minutes might not become very reliable anymore.
The relevant yardstick. No, we see that happening. You see the firms that are focusing on efficiency changing into a subscription type model. I think it makes sense, but maybe it's also sort of like a theme that's been going through the whole economy. Everything needs to be subscription based, right? Toothpaste needs to be a subscription.
Accounting as a service.
Underwear needs to be subscription. I don't know. I like owning my stuff, but I think the accounting industry, I think there it makes sense if you look at it from the perspective of, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be there and I'm going to keep track of what's going on in your business, and I'll be there when you need me. And that's what we're really trying to push as well, with not just annual numbers, but every month. And if there's something special, we'll highlight it and you discuss it with the entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And sometimes I have been referring to, been speaking in events about this pricing change, that maybe we're going towards a world that resembles how gyms operate. Because, if you think about your gym membership, you pay, let's say, 40 euros a month for you get in the gym. But then what happens if you need help with your food, with your personal training, with your buddy or whatever you might have some specialized needs around? How is that priced? It's billed by the hour, right? They very often sell you a package of personal training or nutritional therapy or whatnot. So maybe the accounting industry could also fixed price plus there's something
I think
on top
you
of
see
that.
some of that happening. And it's also difficult to price something like a project where I help an entrepreneur, sell the company or bring in a new generation. And there's a lot of emotional aspects to it. And you can't stick that in like a life-changing event like that into a monthly subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think, of course, this is a pretty big question, but how do you think the industry, from your perspective, should approach the whole AI itself? It's a very big and somewhere there in the horizon still for a lot of us, but how should we, what kind of mindset should we maybe employ at this point in time towards it all?
I think too often ideas are discarded because of privacy risks or is it going to be good enough? It needs to be 100% correct. Otherwise, I don't use it. That's what we quite often run into. And with the current generation of solutions, that's not the case yet. But I think they need to, I hope the industry will accept some of that uncertainty because eventually things will be good enough to replace repetitive tasks. I mean, we've seen that in the past as well with how you process invoices, right? I used the term OCR previously. For those that don't know, it's optical character recognition. If you follow any machine learning course, that's your first assignment. I don't want to talk about definitions, but some people would say that's artificial intelligence. It's not really intelligent, but it doesn't really matter. Thing does something for you. And it wasn't very accurate in the beginning, but we got over that hump and now it's an invaluable tool. So I think an open mindset, accept that it's going to be imperfect, willing to take some risk. And then in 5 years' time, there will be AI in tools that you don't even know. But you'll be using them every day.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
it depends open mind and experimentation culture, and
Yeah.
maybe if as a collective in a company we
Yeah.
say that, hey, once a week, 60 minutes, let's try to find something we
Yeah.
can use, and we
Yeah.
share them
yeah.
to one
and,
another.
and push companies like us as well.
Yeah.
Because we always need to make trade-offs in what we build, right? So if you push us, we will do different things. So I'm
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it's very bright future in this respect.
How do you see? Of course, it's good to talk about the other side of such an approach as well. What about if you decline? What if you are like, no, like this, not for me now,
Yeah.
or I don't see it. Maybe it goes somewhere too technological, and it removes something from the work itself.
Well, I think people who have that point of view have a valid point, and I find we struggle with that sometimes as well. You make a choice for a technology, things go so fast that 6 months down the line you think, is this the right API? Should we have used another model? Should we have done it ourselves? And I think for us, we're quite into the matter. But if you're on the outside and you have no idea what's going on, what do you pick? And maybe there's some paralysis there and you just don't pick anything. And I think that works fine because ultimately software solutions will just come up with the right way of working and build it in the system. So if you don't feel like experimenting, you'll be fine. I think that's...
And I think the number now inside Visma is like there's several hundred experiments almost all the time.
We'll take care of
going.
that. And what I find, I think there's 200 or so experiments, products with AI in it. And what really gets me excited is when we leverage technology across companies, like the matching service where we match payments and invoices or receipts and invoices. If I see how many companies use that algorithm, I think that's the way Visma should operate, right? We leverage technology, we invent it once, and we try and distribute it across companies. So we will do it. We will do our part, but we also need the industry to feed us with the great ideas. And
it's always if we think about the European ecosystem of customers, there's several million businesses, and we're trying to help them. Combination with services and software providers. So it's never that one side can make a huge shift happen fundamentally. It's the whole ecosystem itself. And I have at least often referred to like as a combination. It's us, software companies, it's accounting offices, it's regulators, it's businesses. And around that, we also have other players that play their part. But we all need to.
Yeah, I think, with our multiplier as Visma, the effect is tremendous. And even, and I think maybe we should do more of that, the discussion with regulators, what does this legislation mean? How can we make it more efficient to help SMEs, to help accountants? And I think, we can take a responsibility there as well. Yeah.
What if you were, I don't know, how young were you when you entered the industry itself? What age were you when you came into the business?
I was 18 and I was wearing white tennis socks before they were trendy.
Fantastic. So what if you moved to today and you were 18 today? What kind of tips would you give to yourself if you weren't just now in 2025 coming to the industry itself?
Do you want an honest answer?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I would have been an accountant. I probably would have.
That's a hot take.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also how I ended up there. But that's a long story. We don't need to go into that. But I think I would have, because I had my own firm as well. And I probably would have moved into entrepreneurship quicker. Because I stayed with the firm I worked for 14 years. And I had a great time. But I think, there's you end up in a sort of a pattern, and there's so much more opportunities to do. I only ended up in software after 20 years or so. And I think that's the better place to be, for me at least.
Yeah, exactly.
So
find your own area, a niche. And
look at your full potential. And so I don't regret it, but maybe I would have done the things differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Isn't that almost every one of us?
I have some regrets, but I won't share them here.
I guess Visionplanner and AI will look what the future holds for us. Are there already some exciting things in the pipeline that you're thinking about? No need to reveal anything yet, but you can tease around.
I'm excited about some things that we are doing. We have a lot of data, and we can do so much more with that. It's also a big responsibility. Because it needs to save time, and inaccuracy costs time. And I think we need to be very mindful of that. You know, if we flag an exception, if we say this is wrong and it turns out to be correct, then we've wasted time. And I think we cannot afford this. But I'm quite excited about what's coming in the pipeline.
And I think that's also a very interesting area, this whole responsibility, because if AI starts to give humans advice in their own language, and language is a very powerful tool. Now it's coming from also technology. So how do you take
I think
that?
I mean that's closer than we think, right? If you talk about tax optimization, for instance, and that's been tried. IBM tried this like 15 years ago with Watson, when Watson was still a thing. Try and optimize taxes for consumers, and I'm sure you can build a bot to do that for you, but is it correct? And what are the tax risks? And is it ethical? Is it? So that's quite close to what we do. I'm less worried about, unconscious bias in algorithms when it comes to race or ethnicity or stuff like that. But, other things we definitely need to think very carefully before we roll it out into production.
Yeah. And as people start to trust AI more.
Well, that's exactly right.
I think
if it looks reliable,
a big question. How do you trust? And I heard here many companies struggle a little bit with accountants might not trust the technology and AI as well. And we refer to if it's 90%, it's not 100%.
No,
so,
ask the same question twice, I want the same answer, and I get something slightly different. Then that makes it a bit shaky.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic. Joris, thank you for talking with us about artificial intelligence and that relationship between accountants and the artificial intelligence technology itself.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. And for you, dear listener, hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Voice of Visma. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me or Joris about these topics. And hopefully you join us next time as well as we talk about a different theme. Thank you.